Do we have our first question? Who's going to be? Oh, look, great. Oh.
Hello. One of your biggest hits was Sandman, which is in part about dreams. And
Yep.
like dreams are like when you're dreams are basically memories, aren't they? Like your brain kind of cataloging it. And this story is more explicit in how it deals with memory. What do you find so interesting about memory as a storyteller?
Do you think dreams are memories, by the way? Can I add that to that question?
I think memories are definitely one of the weird building blocks from which we compose dreams. Every now and then I'll see these wonderful sort of pronouncements about dreams. Because one of the things I did while writing Sandman was compulsively buy books about dreams by eminent scientists who should know better, who would announce that all people dream in black and white, all people dream in silence, and my favorite, you are not capable of imagining a face in a dream that you have not seen in real life. And I'm going, look, without a magic machine that looks into people's heads, you're making all of this stuff up. But I think the weirdness, the dangers and the pitfalls of memory is something that I love exploring. Because for all of us, essentially memory is identity. You are your memories. The moment where you have no memory, your identity begins to fade. And yet, memory is also absolutely deceptive. There are things that have happened to me that, on the one hand, I no longer remember. And on the other hand, I absolutely, vividly remember the version that I have been telling people of these events forever. And I don't really know if it's true or not, because now my memory, much like Lord of the Rings, the book and the movie, where, you, for years, one had read Lord of the Rings and you'd built up all of these characters in your head, and you built up these worlds in your head, and then you go and see the Peter Jackson films, and suddenly you look back and you realize your memories of what the book looks like have now been eaten and colonized by the Peter Jackson film, like a computer virus. And you can't quite remember what Frodo looks like anymore, because he doesn't look like that. Now he's the one in the movie. And memory can do that. Memory can get colonized. And so, the pitfalls and dangers of memory have been something that have fascinated me ever since Violent Cases, which was 1986, I wrote that. Was drawn by Dave McKean and published in 87. It was one of my very first things.
What's your own relationship to the films of your books, Beowulf and Coraline, the animated film? Do you look at it and does it feel like a completely different experience to the thing that you originally imagined? Is it frustrating or pleasing?
Mostly it's pleasing. Leaving Beowulf completely aside, because that was written as an original script for Roger Avery, who then didn't wind up making it, and it got made as a giant motion capture extravaganza by Bob Zemeckis, much to my surprise, sort of. Going, this wasn't quite what I'd expect. It was meant to be a down and dirty, funny Terry Gilliam-esque thing, and now it's become this motion capture epic, which was a bit weird. But with my stuff,
to dig deeper, but I'll just leave that for now.
But with things like Stardust and Coraline, I guess in my head, coming from a comics background, where I was very familiar with the concept of Earth 1 and Earth 2. And in Earth 1, things were the comics version of events, and then there was Earth 2 where it was sort of like it was in the 40s, and things were slightly different. And for me, I suppose the Stardust movie is definitely, the Earth 2 version of the Stardust thing. It's not quite the thing that I imagined, and there are things in there that I love that I didn't do, that Jane Goldman and Matthew Vaughn brought, and there are things that I really, really miss, and I look at it and go, I wonder, I would love the bittersweet ending of the novel to be there in the film, but I don't know that novel's ending would actually work in that film, because the film is so upbeat and needs to end happily. With Coraline, the film, I was actually given the script. I was given the first draft of the script by Henry Selick, and who directed it, and he gave it to me shortly after the book was published. And I remember reading it and just saying, Henry, it's too much like the book. It's not a film. And you have to make a film. And go away and come back with a script that feels like a movie. And he did. So with Coraline, even though there are things that I, as an author, would not have done, it frustrates me slightly that the very end of Coraline does feel like she gets rescued by YB, the new boy character. And I look at it and go, no, the whole point of Coraline is she rescues herself. She doesn't have anybody else to rescue her, definitely not a boy. But even with all that, I love Coraline. I think it's a beautifully constructed, beautifully made, gorgeously done thing. Right now, there are films out there in various stages of pre-production and creation and rolling down the ramp that I look at and I'm absolutely fascinated by. I just read the script to a movie by John Cameron Mitchell, to be made by John Cameron Mitchell, based on my short story How to Talk to Girls at Parties, which is essentially a short story about two boys in Croydon who are pretty much what I was like when I was 16, who go to a party and they fail to notice, or at least our narrator completely fails to notice, that all of the girls at the party are aliens. Because he is so desperate to try and get off with one of them that he really isn't listening to what they're saying, and manages to go through this entire story having failed to notice that none of them are human. They're essentially alien tourists. And what John Cameron Mitchell and his scriptwriter Philippa have done is take that and make that the first third of the movie, and then it continues and you find out what happens after, which is wonderful fun. Joe Wright wants to make a film of the ocean at the end of the lane, and I love the idea of him doing it. The opening, the first 20 minutes of Atonement, I think, are just one of my favorite films, and he gets that childhood thing.
But there are projects you have to let go.
You have to let them go, unless you're going to do the whole thing. Unless you're actually going to say, right, I'm going to write the script. Probably I'm also going to have to direct it.
There's a maniacal glint in his eye. I don't know if you can see it out there, but I can see it right here. You watch this space.
But you kind of do have to do that if you actually want the thing that you had in mind to reach the screen. But sometimes you get lucky. I felt like with Coraline, I got really lucky. I felt like with the Doctor Who episode, The Doctor's Wife, I got really lucky. My script got shot, and I loved that.
Another question from the audience. Don't let me hog.
Hello there.
Hello.
First, I'd like to thank you for creating the Sandman, because now I see you. Hello. So I'd like to thank you for creating the Sandman, because I think it's the best comic I've ever read.
Thank you.
And thank you very much. And then I'd like to ask you something else. There is a movie being created by Guillermo del Toro, which is going to be called The Dark Justice League or something like that, and it's going to have in it the Swamp Thing, maybe the Sandman, maybe some, all these dark creatures from Vertigo. So I'm wondering if we're going to be lucky enough to have you as a writer. I know it sounds weird to have in the same team the Swamp Thing, Deadman, all the demon characters, all these things, but.
Have they called you yet?
Guillermo hasn't called me. Guillermo is very busy. And Guillermo is also somebody who, and I love Guillermo. Guillermo is brilliant. I went to the set of Hellboy 2 and got to shadow Guillermo on set for several weeks. Guillermo is somebody who I would write for and work with like a shot. But he is also somebody who has a tendency to enthusiastically say yes to anything he thinks would be really fun and wonderful. I think during the course of Hellboy, he definitely told me that we should definitely do a Doctor Strange movie and a demon movie as well, because then he would have, especially if he did the demon, because then he would have done Hellboy and Doctor Strange and the demon. He would have done it all, and
That'll be definitely cool.
it would be incredibly cool. I don't think it'll ever happen because I think Guillermo is ridiculously, gloriously busy. He's just finishing Pacific Rim, or finished Pacific Rim. He's on to the next project already.
Gosh, I wonder who he reminds me of. Oh, yes. Thank you for your question. What about this gentleman over here? And I hope some women are going to ask some questions and not just leave it all up to me. Okay, I'll be over to you next.
Hi, Neil.
Hello.
I just wanted to ask about the sort of recently kind of highly publicized new arrangement you have with Marvel, and just how one of your characters is being introduced into the universe, and just kind of what you can say about the plans there at this stage. And as you're in a position now to maybe look at the kind of Marvel Man, Miracle Man, sort of scenario, if there was any kind of, if anyone's talked to you about that at all.
Let's see, what can I say? Some of this is stuff that I just don't want to give stuff away. I do know how Angela is going to be reintroduced into introduced into the Marvel universe. I do know the backstory, which Joe Quesada hatched some of with Brian Bendis, and they came up with some ideas, and then they came to me, and I said, oh, I love that, and we could do this, and we could do that, and they would go, oh, yes, and we have a plan.
This is seriously boy geek stuff.
I'm afraid so.
Whoa!
So yes, she is coming in into the Marvel universe, and it's kind of fun and exciting. The Marvel Man, Miracle Man, Mackerel Man mess. As far as I know, Marvel bought the rights to the character from Mick Anglo, who created the character, and I very much hope that at some point Mark Buckingham and I will get to go back and finish that story, because I stopped writing Marvel Man in 1993 when Eclipse Comics went into bankruptcy and the rights to the character went into a peculiar limbo. It would be lovely. I'm not setting aside a time. I'm not holding my breath.
I like the sound of Mackerel Man, though. This lady here with the orange hairband, please.
Yeah, Mackerel Man obviously would have like a really good grey and black costume with stripes.
Yeah, no, I'm liking the idea. Yeah. They like one of those mackerel skies.
Exactly.
Yeah. A lot of them in
Okay, I love your Neverwhere book. So, and I was wondering if you're going to write any other book involving London Underground.
Thank you. I have just finished my first Neverwhere thing in 16 years. I partly just because Dirk Maggs and Heather Lama went off and made their amazing Radio 4 and Radio 4 Extra Neverwhere radio play starring James McAvoy and Christopher Lee and Benedict Cumberbatch and everybody. And I was listening to that and going, this is great. I've forgotten how good this is. I miss these characters. So I wrote a story, a very long short story, technically probably a novelette, called How the Marquis Got His Coat Back, which occurs in the week after the events of the Neverwhere book, when the Marquis comes back to life and he doesn't actually have his coat, and now he needs to go and get his coat. So you will meet things that are alluded to in the book.
And how will this come out? Will it come out as a novel, as a novella?
It will be published in an anthology called Rogues, edited by Gardner Dozois and George R.R. Martin, probably sometime next year. I don't have publication information on it. You will meet the shepherds of Shepherd's Bush in it, who are very, very scary.
Can hardly wait.
Oh, and you meet the elephant from the Elephant and Castle.
This young lady here, and then I've got time for one or maybe two more questions, and I'm afraid that's going to be it. And you always do this. You always all put up your hands right when you say there's only a few more minutes. My goodness, here you go.
Hi. How do you have the time to do all these cool things you do and keep up with Tumblr and Twitter? Are you magic?
There's more than one of him.
No, I'm not. Twitter is. I love Twitter because I can Twitter during downtimes. Twitter tends to happen for me in cabs, between things. Sometimes walking from place to place. You thumb things up, do a little bit of twittering, put it away. But it's not something that actually ever, except when I had to do my giant BlackBerry calendar of tales tweeting out 12 things, that I've ever gone, right, I'm going to be on Twitter for the next 12 hours. It's something you nip onto, see something interesting, retweet it. I love whoever said that they came here, asked for the Neil Gaiman event, and were asked, Neil Gaiman, is he a genius? I love. Thank you for twittering that,
but
whoever it was.
You say that you don't spend too much time on Twitter, but he does have to build defenses against.
Absolutely.
You can explain.
No,
otherwise, I'll tell them.
Mariella was asking me, why wasn't it rather sort of strangely Luddite of me to write with fountain pens in notebooks? That's how I write.
That's how he writes his books.
All of my first drafts of everything. And I was explaining, no, because you can't Twitter from a notebook. Nobody can send you a pop-up message. You can't check text messages. If I can't quite remember how a word that I've not used for a very, very long time is actually spelled, instead of Googling it and somehow finding myself exactly 75 minutes later buying something I didn't want on eBay, I just carry on and resolve to look up the spelling when I type it out. So I sort of build in defensive patterns. Tumblr is also something that happens incredibly fast, but you can give the impression that you're much more active on Tumblr than you are by queuing things. And then people go, look at him, he is so active on Tumblr.
Oh, I like the sound of that.
You just queue things up, and they post for the next 5 days.
Now we're going to very swiftly run through as many of you as we can. So
I'll try and do the
very
two-word
succinct
answers.
questions, and then Neil's going to give you very succinct answers. This gentleman over there, and then I'll come to the middle, and then I'll come over to you, and then that's that.
What myth would you most like to see come true into real life?
Nice question. I'm jealous.
What myth would I like to come true in my life?
Not necessarily in your life, just in life. What
in
myth would you
life
like
or
to
in
see?
my life? Because there is a very dangerous shades of difference there. I think fundamentally, the fundamental, one of the great myths, not actually of any specific culture, but of every culture, up to and including the wonderful wacky world of urban myths, is that people get what they deserve. And I would love that to be true. As a
Very good
writer,
answer.
as a creator of fictions, I want that to be true.
Thank you. Very good question. Very good answer, if I might say as well. Who is there was someone here in the back?
Was
This
a
lady
lady-
here.
Do you always write away from home? Like, do you ever write in your living room or something?
I do write in living rooms, and but I am much more comfortable writing in unfamiliar places. I built a gazebo. I didn't build it. I have people who build gazebos build it. I'm rubbish with a screwdriver. But I had somebody build a gazebo, and I went out there and wrote there for about 5 or 6 years, and then it started feeling really familiar. And at that point, I got a little cabin on a lake where I would go. And then one day that looked familiar, so I went back to the gazebo, which by now I hadn't used for 5 years and was peculiar and alien again. And I'm
What's
really...
wrong with familiar?
I don't know. I write better. It's like when you were asking me earlier before, and the thing, if I felt English or American or just uncomfortable in both countries and alien. And I feel uncomfortable in both countries, and I like the feeling uncomfortable. The great thing about borrowing somebody's house to write in is you're
trash
not
it.
really... Well, no, it's actually the other thing. You're sort of slightly more careful of it. It's not your space. You feel a bit awkward, and I'll retreat into my head and start making up stuff to feel comfortable.
And you don't know what's in the fridge, do you?
You never do.
This lady here.
Hi. We love your book, Neverwhere, and we love, me and my friend, all the characters. But we wanted to ask about Angel. I don't want to spoil it, but did he really flood this mythological city.
He did. But as far as he's concerned, they deserved it.
And yeah, that's why we have a heating discussion about why did he do that.
You know, the lovely thing about fiction, which really is the glorious thing about fiction, is one of the places that good fiction derives its power from is as much from the things that are not said as from the things that are. And sometimes, as an author, you can make things better by actually going in and saying, I have not told you this story, I will tell you this story. And sometimes part of the joy and the power of fiction is that it leaves holes that people can go in and go, well, I wonder what really happened then. And I think the story of Islington and Atlantis is one that I would love to read the fan fiction on that if I read fan fiction. More to the point, I'd love people to write fan fiction about it. And I love the idea that you had arguments about it.
I hope that answers your question in part. And just finally now, this very patient man over here.
Hello.
I'd like to also thank you for the Graveyard book. And I'd love to know what your inspirations were for writing the Graveyard book.
The Graveyard book is one of those lovely books that I actually can point to the moment that it came into existence, which so often I can't. And you know, Coraline, people say, where did you come up with that? I become inarticulate. But the Graveyard book, I lived in a little house on a street, and it was it was sort of a flat above a shop, and it was very tall and thin, and there were lots and lots of stairs. And I had a 2-year-old son who loved nothing more than his tricycle. And there is a problem with a tricycle and a tall house with lots of stairs, which is if he rides it, he will die. And so every day I would walk him across the lane to the graveyard over the road. And he would pedal his little tricycle for all he was worth around the graveyard, and I would beam at him proudly as a father. And I just remember looking at him and going, he looks so happy here, pedaling through the gravestones. I thought, you know, you could do a story of, wouldn't it be fun to tell a story of a kid in a graveyard? And then I had one of those glorious flashes of inspiration. I thought you could make it just like the Jungle Book, only in the Jungle Book, you have a kid who gets lost in the jungle and is raised by wild animals and taught all the things that wild animals know. And I could do a story about a kid who wanders into a graveyard and is raised by dead people and taught all of the things that dead people know. And I'll call it the Graveyard Book. And I ran upstairs, wrote half a page, looked at the half a page that I'd written, and went very, very sensibly, I am not good enough to write this book. Actually, this book is better. It's a better idea than I'm currently capable of doing. I will put it off until I'm ready. And every 5 or 6 years, I would write a few pages of the Graveyard book and look at it and go, no, when I'm ready. And then in 2003, I remember going, I just finished writing 2004, I just finished writing A Nancy Boys, and I thought, I'm not getting any better. Doesn't actually matter if I'm good enough to write the Graveyard book or not. I am probably about as good as I'm going to be, so I may as well start it. And that was the point I started writing the Graveyard book.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you so much
Neil
for
Gaiman.
coming.